This is the Liberty Mom Show. The Liberty Moms are the original secretaries of defense. We are the real defenders of the home front, and we are there when it comes to defending our families and our communities. I'm your host today, Dalane England. So happy to have you join us. We have a great lineup. We have some great guests on. You're going to want to hear what they have to say. It's very important because it is literally going to impact your freedom and your future in this state and in this nation. I want to give you our call-in number. So if you are interested in calling in and talking to any of our guests or to myself, feel free. The number is 385-899-2134. If you didn't catch it, don't worry, because I will repeat it in a minute and you will get a chance to write it down. So grab your pen or your phone and get ready to put it in. And we're going to have a great show for you. I think you're going to love it. First of all, we have Liberty Mom Carolyn Phippen, who is a United States Senator candidate to run to represent Utah, replacing Mitt Romney, which would be a really amazing game changer. And then we also have Representative Carrie-Ann Lisenby from Utah, and she is a great representative in leadership. She has really done an amazing job this year. I feel like she really, in my opinion, I think she had the best year. She's really created a lot of value and done a lot of great things this year. We also have Attorney General candidate Frank Mylar. He is an attorney, has been an attorney in the Utah for 35 years. He is very accomplished and done some amazing things and really literally stood for freedom and liberty and helped so many families. And he has been doing that for a long time. And he is running for Utah AG, and we're really excited to have him on. So we're going to start by talking about how important the elections are and how important it is that we vet the candidates. You know, anybody can say anything. And I've noticed that every flyer I get from every single candidate, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter which position they're running for. I've noticed they all put conservative on it. Well, if they were all conservative and all aligned with the platform and the party platform and the Constitution, then it really wouldn't matter who we elected. We would be in good hands. We would be able to trust all of them. But I just want you to be forewarned. A lot of people say things that in their own minds might be true, but in reality, they're not true. A lot of people are calling themselves conservatives when they are absolutely not conservatives. I am just here to tell you they're not conservatives. There's what makes it conservative. They need to be aligned with our party platform. That is a conservative platform. They also need to be aligned with the Constitution. And the beauty of the Republican platform is it is aligned with the Constitution. So that's a really nice thing about our Constitution is and our platform, the Republican platform. The only reason I am a Republican is because the platform is aligned with the Constitution itself. So I really feel that I must talk about something that is very uncomfortable, and I don't really want to, because I really like my friends and I like to keep my friends. So I'm going to talk about the AG race, those who are running for Attorney General. There's quite a few candidates. I'm going to zero in on 4 of those candidates today, and that would be Derek Brown. There's Rachel Terry that's running. There's also Trent Christensen, and there is Frank Mylar. There are other people running on other tickets, but as far as right now, those are the people that we have to choose from in the Republican Party for the Republican Caucus Convention meeting. One thing that I have found very disturbing, and I feel like people need to be aware of this, especially new delegates who maybe haven't really been delegates before or been terribly involved, a really important thing to consider when we're vetting candidates. We want a candidate that's aligned. We also want a candidate that has integrity and that is has good judgment, who really understands how important integrity is and important it is to have the division of powers and federalism. And especially in the attorney general's position, this is vital to understand what is the proper role of government and what is okay for an attorney general to do, what their job is. That is really one of the most important positions in our entire country, is the state attorney general. It's extremely important because they have two positions. One is they are there to protect the rights of the people, to guard those and protect them, but they also work for the state. So they are also, ironically, supposed to protect the forms of government and the people in positions of power. And so you have to have someone that has above board 100% massive integrity, because it can't be about friendship. It can't be about who is your friend. And so that is really important. And so we're going to get into that. And I find that as I have to make that same decision, we all do. It can't be about our friends or who we like or who has the best personality. It has to be about the very best candidate. We are going to return to that topic. And right now we are going to welcome one of the most amazing women I know, another Liberty mom, Carolyn Phippen, who is running for U.S. Senate, as I told you. She is running for that position, and there are numerous, I've lost track. There's at least 8 or 10, maybe 11 that are running for that position on the Republican ticket. And I have to go through and I have to vet every one of those and find out who is not who do I like the most, who do I think is the nicest, or who do I think has been involved the most, or who has done wonderful things, or who I just am the closest to and have the best relationship. I look at every one of those candidates, and I say, who is the very best candidate? Who can I trust to go back to the mire, to Washington, D.C., to stand up for our Constitution, to honor their oath that they take to do that? Who do I trust to absolutely not cave when not only the Democrats, but the Republican administration pushes and says, we need you to do this. We need you to be all in. Who do I trust to stand up to that? And who knows more about the Constitution than any other? So with that, I introduce you, Carolyn Phippen, candidate for U.S. Senate. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hey, thanks, Dalane. I am maybe a little bit offended, though, by the fact that you said, we don't have to like their personality, or we don't have to, I don't know, whatever else you pointed to. Look, you get it all with me. That's the whole point. I
But
like
that's
the
not
whole
why,
package.
Carolyn. That's not why I support you. It's not because you have the best personality. It is because you know more about the Constitution, you're more aligned, and because you have literally been on the front lines in the fight for freedom and liberty. For 15 years and maybe longer than that, but I can testify for 15 years you have been on the front lines, you have been in this. And I know I've never seen you cave on one thing. I've never seen you get lost or cave. And I just think that is one of the biggest problems we have. We see good people, good principled people go back, and then they drink the Kool-Aid. Something happens to them. They get Stockholm syndrome. They talk and they mingle around these other people and they start to think like them. And I know that we need a candidate, someone that will go back there and won't get sucked in, who will stand up and stand strong. And that is why I really have vetted every candidate that is on the Republican ticket. I have asked them the questions. I have found out their background and their history. We have some good candidates, but there really isn't anyone who stands out and shines the way that you do. And it isn't, and we are friends. I'm full disclosure. We are friends. I consider several of the other candidates, many of them, I consider them very good friends, but I can't choose them because they're friends. I must choose the best candidate. And I think, a lot of us are friends with a lot of candidates because there are good candidates that we like and that we have been friends with. But we have to look at not who got in the race first, who we aligned with first, who we are already friends with, who we like, who we already supported, who we've supported in other races, Who's the most prepared? Who can we trust? So, Carolyn,
Yeah.
with that said, I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, I want to know,
Yeah.
how did you learn so much about the Constitution? Where did you learn it?
Yeah. So I learned it in my life. And I'll tell you, I got to where I am politically over years and years and years of study. I've always leaned conservative, but I grew up, I've been in Utah 35 years, but grew up in an area of the United States near where Joseph Smith, by the way, grew up. And I remember sitting in school when I was young, learning about the Revolutionary War, right? And thinking, wow, wouldn't it have been cool to live then? And always I have had, and we are living them, by the way, we are
Yes, we
living
are.
that
Mhm.
now,
We are,
right?
100%.
But I've always had this within me, this love of country, this deep understanding, just innately for what it means. I don't think that's natural for everybody, but it is for some of us.
Yeah.
And I always had that. And then, of course, in college, pursued political science. But even before that, I remember as a teenager talking politics with my
Mhm.
friends, and not everyone believed or thought like I did. And granted, this isn't what we spent most of our time talking about. But I remember some of those conversations. It was a part of them. And frankly, I grew up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in an area where there were no other members, right? Like some people traveled for 45 minutes or more to get to church. And so what that meant is my whole life, in those formative years, I was always in a position where I was thinking. I was forced to think things through, to question, to seek, and it just led to what I am and who I am. And so the things that I know and believe and understand about this country are so deeply ingrained in me that it's a part of me. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite mission companions when I served a mission was like a total liberal hippie. And we'd do our work during the day and we focused on the gospel. And in fact, she was my maid of honor. She lives in the Midwest, but she came out and I went out for her wedding. We were that close, but we would debate politics like at night. We had trouble getting sleep because we wouldn't focus on politics during the day, of course. We
Of
were busy
course.
doing more
Right.
important things, frankly. But, you know, it has been decades of conversations. I've always subscribed to liberal newspapers, always. I always want to know if I'm missing something because that's the only way we find truth. And when we dig in our heels and we refuse to listen, we become weaker as a people, we become weaker as individuals. And I think that it keeps us from pursuing truth. And I'm telling you, I've gotten to this point where I see some people around me and I ask the question, like, how do you not see what I see right now? How do you not understand what's taking place in this country? And these are not stupid people.
Right. Exactly. They're
So, right.
intelligent.
So the only conclusion I have been able to come to is that over time, when we shut ourselves down to new information or information that may make us uncomfortable or that we don't agree with or whatever, that we become less and less able to recognize truth. We have got to be open always. And that's what's made me who I am. I remember, so I studied political science, graduated in political science, served a mission in a country, Czechoslovakia. My companion and I were the first sisters in a country where the hold of totalitarian government had just been stripped away after 40 years. So
Wow.
that's my experience too. So I spent, and by the way, I'd been at BYU just prior to that studying Soviet government and economy. And then the wall comes down and then I go there like, my life has been a path of deeply knowing and understanding these principles and deeply seeking for truth. So I remember, as a young mother, I would read all kinds of books. Like I remember, what was it? Is it Manhattan Institute? I remember sitting there one time when my son was at the doctor reading this analysis of welfare reform. Like I have always just deeply cared about these issues and how we find truth in everything and how we structure society in a way that is faithful to the principles that were laid out in the Constitution and inspired by God. And that's just been the mission of my life, just because I care and I want my life spent doing good.
I love it. Yeah, it's been really fun as I've interviewed candidates and people that are in the legislature. The ones that are very principled and know the Constitution, it's very interesting. It's mostly, I think 100% they were self-taught. They had a desire for truth and they went out and they learned more about it and from their life experience desire to. So, okay, I want to know what sets you apart give me 3 things that set you apart from the other people in the race. I just want you to, because there's a lot of candidates, they all say they're conservative.
Yes.
They all seem
Yes.
wonderful. They really do. They all seem really
Yep.
wonderful. So, what are 3 things that make you
Okay.
different?
So, we always have these elections and people say the same things, and then we elect them, and 75% of the time we're disappointed, right?
Right.
At least. And so there are a number of things. I would say, I think that my experience has uniquely qualified me to understand how to work with people in a way that is effective. And let me give you a couple of examples and a framework on this. You have the executive branch. I'm sure people listening to your show understand deeply the differences between the various branches of government. But you have a judicial, which no, I could never be there, and executive and legislative. And their roles are very different. Executive branch, where you are charged with enforcing the law passed by the legislature. We've gotten to this place where executive branch sometimes often says, this is what I'd like to see, and like big picture stuff, and legislative goes along. So they can use their bully pulpit to kind of steer that legislative branch. But the legislative branch and the legislative process is so different from the role of executive. I've had a number of people who have just really early on said, would you please, I think a lot of it was before Phil was talking about getting into the governor's race, please run for governor. We need you as governor. And my response was always, I don't know the first thing about the executive branch. I mean, I do in theory.
Yeah.
But my work and focus has always been deep on policy. So deep on policy, number one, not only deep but wide on policy, as well as kind of the way that you accomplish things from the legislative perspective. Think about this. You can have the leader of any governmental entity, say the governor, who says, this is what I want. And then he may issue an executive order. We all have problems with that. Or he may just give a speech that spurs on his legislative branch, who, of course, he has talked to behind the scenes already. He may twist arms to get what he wants. But he is in a completely separate branch of government with very different duties. It is much more administrative.
And designed to have a little tension. They're not supposed to sing kumbaya
No,
and get along right. They're supposed to, in order to keep that separation and to keep the checks and the balance, there needs to be a little, you don't balance like this, you balance like this.
That's a very good point. Thank you. We have too much kumbaya. Anyway, we do. But that's a different role completely. And outside of, I mean, I could pull it off, but outside of my experience and area of expertise, I would say that in this race, I have worked in more deeply and broadly federal policy than anybody else in the race, anybody else, even those who have worked in federal policy. I have worked in it from a legislative perspective more deeply and broadly. And I'll tell you, I even had somebody at an event last night who said, because he was there when a number of questions were asked, or it was a couple nights ago, whatever. And he said, I think I have a question that's going to seem kind of out there. And then he asks it. And I responded with some experiences I had working in that very realm. And he just went, Like, you're kidding me. No one can ever answer that,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Like, he was shocked. But I'm telling you, there is nobody else in this race. I have a son who just walked in. I don't usually do interviews out here, but I needed a
Right.
different space. Um, but no, there is nobody else in this race who knows the ins and outs of these various issues, both for the state with regard to federal policy and the way to accomplish some of these things. I'm going to give an example. So this is going to count for two, okay? Because
Okay.
one is depth and breadth, and the other is application. So a legislative body is all about, in the Senate, you're one of 100. If you're going to stand in the corner and scream and lob bombs, good luck. You're getting nothing done. And by the way, no one's going to like you. So,
Right.
right, which is why you'll get nothing done. I don't care if people like my politics,
Mhm.
but I don't want people to hate me because I'm a jerk. That you right, like that would not be optimal. Anyway,
Right.
so
Yeah, as I
because
always
I
say, do you
would,
want to be right or do you want to be right and to be effective? Because
that's
you
right.
can't just be right. You need to be effective if you're right. Otherwise, being right doesn't really do us any good. You've got to
That's
be
right.
effective. And throwing bombs is not effective generally. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, but in the legislative branch, throwing bombs does not help.
You're exactly right. So I'm going to go in the other room because I have like a 16-year-old who thinks he should be able to eat when he comes home.
Exactly.
Um,
Just because he's hungry, he should be able to go in the kitchen and fix something to
I,
eat.
I don't know why he's home so early, but anyway. Um,
Yeah, we think we have private spaces and private times. It's like I have to be in my office and not where I want to be because the BYU game is going, and my entire male part of my family, which is 95% of our family, all came to watch the BYU game. And I hope you can't hear the cheers in the background, but hopefully they're winning. So I
I
can
have
relate to
one
what you're doing.
I have one non-adult child and he comes home for lunch today. He never comes home for lunch. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we think
So,
we're
and
safe.
I'm not set up, but anyway, we're good. So,
It's great. Nice background.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So there is that whole piece legislatively, but here's the piece about working with people, and I'll tell you. So beginning of 2022, which is piece number 2, legislative, very very different from being in the executive branch where you are, the elected face of the organization that is charged with enforcing the law. So this is now legislating. And so I worked on ESG beginning of 2022. Nobody was up at the legislature
Right.
talking about it. It was
Mhm.
before Marlo Oaks had started. He started in January of that year. So I go up, I start talking to legislators about ESG. The only person I had heard really talk about it was Glenn Beck. Nobody else was.
Mhm.
Cheryl Acton had a bill that year on social credit scores that got killed very quickly. I talked to the bankers really objected.
Yes.
And I know Cheryl had a conversation with a lot of people, or
Mhm.
Representative Acton. I
Mhm.
had numerous conversations with the Bankers Association, and they made some legitimate points, right? That they were concerned about innovation in the banking system based
Mhm.
on some of that language. So that's fair. And Cheryl was willing to, Representative Acton was
Right.
willing to work with them as well.
Yeah, she's
So
very good at that.
yeah. So, and then Representative Rex Schiff, who's endorsed me, had because the guys on the ground know the work I've done, had an energy bill that got killed. And so I had worked with him. There was no way to kind of make some changes that we wanted there, and it got killed anyway. So over that next year, through the end of the summer, I led a working group with Sean Reyes's office, the AG, with the treasurer's office and Marla Oaks, with a number of state legislators and with business people who understood from a business perspective what ESG, the impacts that it had and what it does in business. So we were able to talk through a lot of ways that we could accomplish the same goal by tackling it differently. And then the House and Senate held their own working groups. They did things that a lot of ideas came from those initial ideas in the working group that I led through the summer. And there was a bunch of really good legislation that got passed in 2023, about 10 bills, give or take, depending on what you consider ESG specific. And so my point just being that was, first of all, if I were a bomb thrower, people would not have come to the table to have that discussion. We would not have been able to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. And we were able to lead the way in getting all of this good legislation over. It was all good. We did not, I mean, it didn't give us everything we wanted. You know this. I mean,
Yeah.
I testified in support. The bankers testified in support of the bill that they had objected to the year before because enough changes were made that it didn't impinge on the liberty of the business owners and the people engaging in commerce in that way.
That's massive.
Right. Yep.
That's really big because
So,
the bankers are, yeah, they're hard to get on board.
so, but I agree with some of their initial concerns. So
Sure.
all I'm saying is that's different than being the guy in charge of stuff, either as the speaker or mayor of a town, right? Like this is a totally different realm. And I've done it, and I've done it for a number of years, and I've done it very successfully on really important issues, which is why people have hired me to help them in their own pursuits in accomplishing these things. So I would say that's two massive skills that I have that I don't see that I feel I'm extremely unique on. Let's see. Let me give you a third. How I'm different. I have the perspective of somebody who is not a politician. I come at this as somebody who has worked in this space because I care about this space, and I think they care too. Like I'm not taking
Yeah.
from
Right.
anybody.
Right.
But this is not, I am not, look, we're heading off a cliff as a nation because politicians are always looking for their next election, their next political move, their next step up the rung on the ladder.
Worried about getting reelected. Worry more about that than protecting our country.
I literally left the most cushy job I've ever had in order to run for this office because I did not see anybody who had the skill set that I have and the backbone that I have. And I'll tell you, my formative years gave me that backbone. I'm not saying everyone develops it because I don't see it even in all my siblings, right? But there's something about me and those experiences that I do not care where the crowd is headed. I care to be with truth and right. And that's just all that drives me. And that's the only reason I'm doing this, because I have a lot better things I could be doing in my life right now. Better for me, more fun for me.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think we live in those times where any of us, I can't tell you how many days, I don't even think about this in the recent past year or two, but how many days I used to think, wouldn't it have been nice to raise my kids in the 1980s?
I know.
Or not, I could just
leave it to
garden. I built a greenhouse last year. I bought chickens last summer. Or last spring. I love so many things about my wonderful life with my family, but this is about, it's time for every single one of us to step up, because far more difficult than the sacrifices that we're all making right now to be engaged would be sitting back and watching career politicians continue to burn down the greatest nation the world has ever known.
Absolutely. And we see, as the scriptures tell us, it will only come down from within. We have to restore our moral foundation, and we have to elect people who are willing to hold that line. And so if you're in the Senate, what would you do about the debt ceiling limit? Because we're right on that now. They're like, okay, now we have to raise the limit again, or we have to shut down the government. What's your stand on that? What would you do as a senator?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Remember when the government was shut down under Obama? He had to take additional action just so that the American people would feel some pain. I think he said that, right? But even if he didn't say it, we all knew what was going on.
Right.
Because shutting down the government doesn't hurt most of us. And it doesn't hurt people on Social Security. They still get their checks. That's not a part that shuts down. All these kinds of things. Here's the thing. People have been so afraid to shut down the government because of the massive backlash that came last time. right? There was a really big attempt by the establishment in Utah to take out Mike Lee over that. Remember
Yes.
that?
Yes, I
They
do.
wanted him gone because of that.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, no, we are falling off a cliff. I would rather deal with problems before we hit the bottom. By the way, additionally, I have proposed, and I'm the only one I've ever heard propose this, a 2-year budget. Because, and also, like, the lobbyists hate that idea because
Absolutely.
then they don't have the chance to come back every year for more money. But
Right.
look, Congress has proven that they can get, leadership has proven that they can get Congress a budget in 11 and a half months. So we know they can do it. So you now got 11 and a half months, and then Congress should have a year to consider it, to vote on it, to make amendments, to make changes, to line by line read over and go over that entire budget to try to fix this problem.
Yep.
We need an actual budget.
It's not that hard. We need a budget. We need to stop spending money on things that are not in Article 1, Section 8, that are not constitutionally authorized to spend money on. If we did that, we would be in great shape. We could get out of this. It's actually doable. As overwhelming as it feels, we're spending money where we shouldn't be spending money. We stop it.
Yes.
It would not be painless. It will be painful, just like when you're overspending in your own family. You stop the discretionary spending. You just stop it, which is not painless. Stop going out to dinner, stop going to entertainment. You just cut those expenses. You start entertaining yourself at home and for free. And it's amazing how fast you can get yourself back into line and into budget. So yes, I think that's really important. It's like, it's not just the Democrats who are spending, it's the Republicans keep going along with it, which is why we're at 34 trillion.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, I'm anticipating that you're going to say, when we're dealing with the wall, that you're supporting of a wall, that you're in favor of no more illegal immigration.
Yeah, no more illegal immigration, and we need mass deportation. We have no other choice.
Yes. And so how would you do that? How would you deport?
Yeah, we know where these people are. We're giving them money. This is not difficult.
We're paying them.
No, we are paying them. By the way, if we were to deport 1,000 a day, it would take 30 years. Wow. That's the situation we're in right now. Yeah. And if the Democrats, and then I have to jump off in a minute, I have a call, but if the Democrats were to legalize them, they then become eligible for chain migration.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to have 100 million within 5 years.
Yeah.
Just off of that.
In no time at all.
Has to be deportation.
And it isn't that we don't have room in the United States, it's that they've got to come through the front door. We have let terrorists, we have let drug dealers, we have let sex traffickers and other human traffickers in our country. We have let literally terrorists.
Dalane, we're a nation of laws.
Right.
I have a son who has lived in Japan for years and has a Japanese girlfriend. If they were to decide to get married and she wanted to come to the United States, if he ever chose to move back, he's been there for a long time. Do you know what hoops and how much money they would have to jump through and how many years they would have to wait for that to happen? We are a nation of laws and we need those. Yeah, if she came across the southern border, they'd pay her. Truly, like, we have got to. Here's the thing. I'm going to say one last thing. Our founders, people can never guess this last thing, but I bet you can. I've had one guy ever tell me what it is. Our founders were very good in understanding 3 things. They understood and they studied: governments, history, and what's the third that the left leaves out of every calculation they ever do that our founders fundamentally understood? Do you know?
The Bible, without question.
Well, that too. Human nature, which is a part of biblical teachings.
Which is very much all the biblical teachings. Plus, it's also what you were saying about studying other governments and philosophy is human nature, because it's all about why have other governments failed? Human nature.
When we understand incentives, if regular people even thought through incentives and disincentives, every single American would understand how untenable this border situation is,
Yes. Mhm.
right? You are
Right.
incentivizing law breaking and
Yes.
you are disincentivizing keeping the law. That's what we're doing.
You're incentivizing it and then paying them to do it. So you're literally promoting it. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Carolyn, thank you so much. You're wonderful. I wish
Thank
you all
you.
the best, and we really are so grateful to have such an excellent candidate in the race. Thank you for taking time to be with us, and keep working. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate it
so
so much.
much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so this is brought to you by Main Street Media, Utah. We're broadcasting live on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, or X, I should say, and we are on kmmu.org. That is our website, kmmu.org. So I invite you to go there. Lots of other great hosts and great guests and great opportunities to learn about what is happening in our world today and what we can do about it. We really want to empower you to do something about it, to know that liberty is your responsibility and that you can do something about it. It's definitely within your grasp. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Representative Carrie Ann Lisenby, and then we're going to be back with Frank Mylar, who is a candidate for the Attorney General in the state of Utah. Stay with us.